Well, good morning. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday morning. May I be the first to wish all the dads watching a happy Father's Day. Hope you all have a very special day today. This is also the week when the calendar says that summer will arrive. Let's hope that's true. This morning we have a conversation with a sign painter turned artist. It starts right now.
From TV6, this is the Ryan Report. Now here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, first off, an apology to sign painters everywhere. I'm sure many of them should be considered artists at what they do. I was mainly trying to draw a distinction between two different phases in the life and career of our guest this morning. We're going to be talking with Dan Cook, and one thing we'll explore is the similarity and differences between a sign painter and an artist, because he's been both. Dan, welcome back to the Ryan Report.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
I think the last time you were here we talked about fishing, something to do with Great Lakes fishing.
Yeah, I started South Shore Fishing here in Marquette 2001.
Are you still involved with that?
No, I'm not. I've stepped aside, thankfully, and had some evolution and leadership, and It's all been good.
Let's talk about, I want to talk about Dan Cook, the current day artist, but let's take it back a little further. Your family, your grandfather, started in the sign painting business, sign service company business, back before you and I were born.
Indeed. Back in '36, my grandfather started the sign business that we had up until 2001. I sold it in 2001, but my grandfather started it. He was working for the railroad, and he just started as a sideline. And then after the war, my dad came back from World War II, and he went to neon school on the GI Bill.
Really?
And that's how we got into making neon signs and so on. And then after I got out of school, I joined, and my wife joined the business, and we built quite a good billboard business, and we sold that a number of years back, 16 years ago.
Did your grandfather share any interesting stories from those early days of the sign business?
Numerous, but I can't think of any offhand.
No, right. And you know, when you point out the billboards, really, the sign business was more than just painting signs, right? You know, most sign companies had to have billboards and sign locations that they could rent out.
Yeah, we were pretty diverse for a small sign company. We did electronics. We were part of the cutting edge on tactile braille signs when ADA came out. We did neon signs. And in that time, we were evolving our billboard business, where I did most of my painting, and that was pre-digital, of course.
Right.
So,
what were your initial duties with the company? Working for your dad, I assume, at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. My dad and my grandfather. I worked for my grandfather for a while until he passed away. But yeah, just in charge of the crews, and I did a lot of sales. I touched on every part of the business. So I was digging holes, I was painting signs, I did anything and everything to keep it going, because we were such a small company.
But you actually were a sign painter, and people did paint signs back in those days.
We did, and we brought our billboards into the shop because of our weather here in the Upper Peninsula, and we did them right in the shop on 4x10s, and we primed them, colored them, laid them out, painted them. That's where I learned a lot of my brush control and color mixing.
Okay. And at some point you took over the business?
Yeah, around 1973, 74, my wife and I stepped up and took it from there. Okay.
Certainly you had to see a lot of change in that business, even in the time you were there.
That's a very good point. I wasn't afraid of riding the cutting edge of technology, and I think that was very advantageous to us and to me from a financial standpoint of building our outdoor business. I always had the newest computers, and I was sure glad I did that. I rode that technology curve for quite a while.
I can remember when I started here at TV6 the first time, we had an artist who would draw many of the camera cards and devices.
I suppose.
Now there is no such thing. You know?
Yeah.
It's all done on computers and with graphics.
Yes.
So by the time you left, the business had changed pretty dramatically.
Today, I would have a hard time walking back in because of all the materials, and they do large format digital printing, and they do a lot of things that aren't applicable to when I was there. I would have to learn.
Right. We often hear the term starving artist. um, how was it getting started for you when you walked away from your business and decided to devote more time to becoming a painter?
I just thought I was so well trained at work, whether it be mixing color or brush control. I thought, and towards the end of my career, I watched a lot of artists and they weren't paying a lot of attention to our shoreline. And we have such a beautiful shoreline, it's easy to capitalize on. And that's what I'm doing today. I paint, you know, basically shoreline stuff, but I dabble in other things. But that's how I evolved.
Okay. We're going to take a look at some of those, a few of your paintings in
Good.
the next segment of our show so we can give people a better idea of just exactly what your art looks like. And we'll talk about how you go about making it happen. We'll get back to that in just a couple of
Thank
minutes. Back with more on the Ryan Report after we take this break. Our guest this morning is Dan Cook. Dan, for many years, was in the sign business. Now he's an accomplished artist, painter. Dan, is there a way to describe your particular style of painting? And I'm not an art critic or professional, but...
That's a real good question and point. I've tried to evolve to my style, and I lean towards a little heavier impressionism. I started off with realism painting and being able to capture what I was painting, but today I'm trying to stay heavy impressionistic.
But looking at your work, you clearly have done both.
I have.
Yeah.
And
some very detailed work, in fact.
sometimes it warrants stepping back from one and doing the other, and you know. But typically, I want to do heavy impressionism.
Okay, we've got some of your paintings, and we've got them on video. And if you want to look at the screen, you can see. Talk to us about this one, for example.
That's a recent painting that sold very quickly, and that's what I'm talking about when I talk about heavy impressionism.
Right.
And that's the Big Bay Lighthouse, of course, and this one's the Lower Harbor, and that leans a little towards more realism, but still a touch of impressionism in that. And I did that last year. Recently did this and
That's a different...
sold it right away, very quick.
That night sky.
Yeah. Night skies seem to sell well, and they complement our shoreline well.
Most of this is downtown Marquette.
Yeah, I don't know if a lot of people realize it, but our sun never really comes up there.
Right.
So it's
You kind of made that one up.
yeah, I made it
You have
happen.
the sun rising in the north.
Yeah,
But it's a nice painting.
thank you. That sold right away, and I have this one in baby cakes right now. I think I got a show going in there with a number of paintings. That's the Marquette Fish Dock, of course, and quick. I paint very quick. I paint in less than 3 hours typically. Mackinac Bridge. I did that not too long ago, and I sold that. That's
a familiar scene for a lot of people, obviously.
yeah.
And this is more in that impressionistic.
Yeah, it's another night view of our shoreline. Our shoreline is so beautiful. It's just hard to stay away from for me. I do a lot of the shoreline. And I sold this to a couple in Texas, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, it was, that was a time when the big red moon was coming up, and I thought it was appropriate.
It's an interesting...
Of our the ensigns in the Lower Harbor. This is an early painting. It's old cinder pond. I was really going back and forth on, where I wanted to go with it, realism or impressionism, and it turned out a little of both, I guess.
I think that might be the last one in this segment. Yes.
Okay.
What kind of materials do you use for your painting?
I use all acrylics because
Okay.
sign painting, I was in oils all the time. My hands were dirty and it stinks, and but the acrylics today are so easy to work with. You can work fast with them, and I paint on level 2 canvas. It's a heavier canvas.
Okay.
So typically that's all I'm doing is canvas work, and
Okay.
you know, it doesn't warrant frames. So
We've got another set of videos we want to look at, another set of your pictures, which are a little more in some unusual categories. This has to do with the sled dog race, obviously.
oh yeah, I did this for the UP 200. They were looking for artists to do some stuff for them, and I actually did this, gave it to them, and I gave them the printing rights to it. And this one, of course, is the Hematites, Coach Olson,
Right.
hugging his son after the game, and I gave that to Coach Olson. He did such a great job with that
Oh,
team.
yeah, he's a great
It
guy,
was,
too.
yeah.
And you enjoy contributing your art, don't you?
Yeah, that's most of what I do. Jeannie Thorne, local Marquette girl.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember who
Right, I
she
do,
is.
yeah.
She was inducted in the Ski Hall of Fame, and I did that for Jeannie, and that's hanging at Marquette Mountain.
Okay. Interesting picture.
Yeah. And this was a portrait I did for Frida Wara, and that's her daughter. And I think that was in Colorado. It was a wedding gift from Ron and Frida
Okay.
for their kids.
Okay. So well, let's.
This is a painting I did of Christ, and I gave to St. Peter's,
Okay.
and it's in the cathedral in the basement at St. Peter's. I'm really proud of that because in 100 years, hopefully it's still there.
Right.
You
I
know?
think we get another shot of it before we
Oh.
drop out of here that shows more of the. There it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm proud of that. That's a big piece. That was 3 foot by 4 foot, I think. And they framed it. They spent a lot of money on a frame and did a great job.
Well, looking at these really shows that you are able to go from that impressionistic to very realistic.
Yeah, you have to bend with each situation, and if I feel something works for me, I'll lean one way or the other.
And you've done quite a few of these paintings for charity now, haven't you?
I have. I give to the Fish Boil every year, the Rotary Fish Boil. I've been doing that for a number of years, and recently gave to another Rotary group. Geez, they're numerous.
You know, when you see a scene as an artist, do you see something differently than the rest of us see that allows you to
I'm
somehow put that on canvas?
I'm just starting to do that. I do indeed. I can twist a scene and make it liven up and add my color to it. I use a lot of orange. I use a lot of blue, and that happens. You know, the whole scene changes to, I call light it up.
Okay.
I want to light up the situation, and that's what I do with the color.
Okay, we have to take one more break. Back with more on the Ryan Report in just 2 minutes. Not much time left as our conversation with Dan Cook continues. We were talking during the break the fact that you do what you've called performance painting. Talk to us about
Yeah,
that.
some people call it speed painting, painting in 10 minutes or less. A few years back, probably been 5 years now, I started studying it on YouTube, what they were doing, how they were doing it. And there are a few tricks to it.
Well, I'm sure.
You know, and I decided to do one for the Rotary Fish Boil to raise money for them, and I built an easel that rotates. When you're painting, it's almost like welding. If you weld like this, it's easy. If you weld like this, it's hard. And the same thing is applicable with cutting a line. So if you're cutting a line, so the easel rotated that I built.
Okay.
And it was my first time doing it for Rotary, and I forgot to pin the rotary in the back.
Okay.
And 2 minutes into it, the canvas fell. I was in front of 300 people. I had college kids dancing, and I had the Rolling Stones playing in the background. And the easel fell apart, so to speak. The canvas fell off the easel. And the MC came over, grabbed it, held on to it, says, "Keep painting."
Okay.
And my wife came up and held it, and I got it done in about 9 minutes. And it was a Mick Jagger, a painting of Mick Jagger.
Okay.
And it sold for $1,100 there
Wow.
at the Fish Boil.
Wow.
So I was proud of that, but I had nightmares after that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But I've done it on video for a number of occasions. I've done it for the Children's Museum. I've done John Lennon for the Children's Museum. I did Charlie Caboggum. And these all can be seen on YouTube. I have an account on YouTube. Okay. Charlie Caboggum for the Historical Society. And I've done quite a few. It's a lot of fun.
You have one more we want to show, and this is one that you're, I think, currently donating for Beacon House. And if we could call up the shot.
Sure.
There it is, right there.
Sure. Every year the Beacon House has a fundraiser to keep their group going, and every year I donate, and it's a big event. They raise a lot of money, and it's for people that are in a financial and political, not political, but a financial storm, so to speak. And I thought it was appropriate, big water and the Beacon House being the lighthouse. So hopefully it sells well for them and they raise some money with it.
Okay. We actually have it here in real life.
Yeah.
And this is actually what it looks like. It's a very unique painting. So
I'm wishing them all the success in the world with it.
well, it's certainly a great cause for what they do.
Yes.
What's this right here? How do you get word out about your paintings? You know, what's the best way to?
Good question. I found Facebook. I do really well on Facebook, but I'm also on a number of locations in Marquette. I'm at Nagelkirk's in Harvey. I'm at a New Leaf floral shop on Front Street. I'm in Elizabeth's Chop House. I'm at Interiors by Design, and I'm showing 8 pieces in baby cakes right now. That's proven to be really good for me, a lot of exposure. And then I do Art on the Rocks.
Well, and that's coming up, right?
That's 30th and 31st of July. I've been in it for a number of years now, and I love being in it, seeing all the people, and it's just a great time to see all my clients. I have paintings in Florida, I have paintings in California, Texas. So via Facebook and via Art on the Rocks, I've done well on a small scale. I do just that one show a year, Art on the Rocks, and I throw my heart and soul into it. They do such a good job.
Oh yes, it was great for Marquette.
It is.
We have less than a minute left.
Sure.
I was going to ask, you know, are you like a writer that you have to schedule yourself to make sure? Is there a discipline that you paint so much?
That's another great question. I try to go to Art on the Rocks with 30 pieces, 30 originals.
Okay.
I was doing prints and giclées. Giclées is a digital print of an original, and I decided I'm not going to do them because my originals sell so well and I like to paint so much. I'm just painting a little bit more this year, and I have a number of pieces, and I'm going to be showing all originals this year, no prints.
Okay. And that's coming up when again, the 30th? And
July 30th and 31st. It opens at 10 o'clock and runs till 5.
Well, thanks for coming in today.
Yeah,
I really
thank
appreciate
you.
it, Dan.
Thank you.
Good to know how an
it was a lot
artist
of
works.
fun.
And I think I told you before in the break, I can't draw a stick man even, so I truly admire somebody who can. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Back with more on the Ryan Report after we take this break. Well, once again, the high school graduation season is behind us. Congratulations to all the graduates around the Upper Peninsula. In many gymnasiums and auditoriums, that oft-used phrase, "This is not the end, but the beginning," was heard. But what does that truly mean today? There are mixed emotions for parents and students as they reach this point in their life. Many graduates will be heading off to college. Some will be looking for their first full-time job. Others may be ready to embark on a career or at least temporary service in the U.S. military. In many cases, that means leaving home for the first time, which can be difficult for parents and students. As I was waiting for the start of a graduation ceremony for one of my own grandchildren, the thought crossed my mind that things are a lot different than when I went through that same ceremony in 1957. I was also thinking what a dangerous place this world has become as we prepare to send this new crop of graduates out to explore it. And I thought, things were different in that regard back when I graduated. After all, back then we were just getting used to television, since TV6 went on the air only a year earlier. But what else was happening? Well, that was the year the Hamilton Watch Company introduced the first electric watch. Elvis Presley appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show. The Wham-O Company produced the first Frisbee. Dr. Seuss' The Cat in the Hat was published. The sitcom Leave It to Beaver premiered on national television, and the Mackinac Bridge, the world's longest suspension bridge, opened to connect Michigan's two peninsulas. So was the world a safer place back then, or wasn't I paying close enough attention? Well, that brought forth another reminder from that year. The United States was in what was called the Cold War, a lengthy struggle between the American democracy and the communist-led government of the Soviet Union. And that year, a study called the Gaither Report called for more American missiles and fallout shelters. Things weren't as safe as I remembered them. What does it all mean? I think it means that each generation, each graduating class, enters a world full of dangers and challenges, but it's also a world of opportunities. And here's the most surprising thing. I can't believe how much the world, and especially technology, has changed since I wore the cap and gown at the Ishpeming High School auditorium. But what's truly amazing is that 40 or 50 years from now, the graduates of today will look back and say the very same thing. Yes, they'll be living in that world where cars drive themselves, where we communicate without devices using some form of telepathy, where virtual reality is reality, and where people routinely live to be 150 years of age. And even with that, the roads will still have potholes in the spring, dandelions will still be attacking your lawn, and the Chicago Cubs will have another losing season. No, wait a minute. The Cubs are having a great season. Maybe there's hope for potholes and dandelions after all. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Well, once again, it's time for us to make way for the Today Show, which is coming up next. Thanks to Dan Cook for joining us this morning to talk about art today, as well as some interesting history about the sign painting business. Keep in mind, if you miss our show, it will be available on the internet. The place to go for the Ryan Report, as well as the latest news, sports, and weather, is UpperMichiganSource.com. Latest show is usually available starting on Monday afternoon. A little bit of closing information about this week. Summer is scheduled to arrive in Upper Michigan tomorrow evening at 6:34 Eastern, 5:34 Central Time. If you want to plan a celebration, you now have the date and time, so go for it. Thanks for joining us this morning. I hope you enjoy this Father's Day and that you plan to join us again next Sunday morning.